The GR Corolla gets an automatic transmission for the 2025 model year, and it's a big change, but don't worry, the manual transmission is still available. It's actually about $2,000 cheaper than the automatic transmission version, but it's great to now have an automatic for those who wanted to get in on the GR Fun, but they didn't have the ability to drive a manual for whatever reason. Now you have it with the automatic, and it also brings launch control with it, and shift times that they say at Toyota are faster than some of the competing 8-speed automatics out there, and even faster than some of the competing dual clutch automatic transmissions out there. So we will test that out here in this video, both on the street and on the track, and see what it's like. But as far as the styling, you can see the other big change here is right up front. There's a new front bumper. That's the only visual change here for 2025, but it's a big one. That front bumper is dramatically restyled. They did that for better cooling, partially because they needed to accommodate extra cooling for the automatic transmission fluid cooler that is added on here to the automatic cars, of course, and also because there's now an option for a sub-radiator for even better cooling, especially designed, for track driving and things like that. That is standard here on this new Premium Plus trim, which is a new addition for 2025. That basically just replaces the Circuit Edition, pretty much all the same stuff as the Circuit Edition from last year. But that's on this one. You can also get it on the regular Premium as an option. And there is still the Core model. If you still just want, more basic interior, you don't need heated seats and stuff like that, you can still get that Core as well. But this front bumper definitely gives it more aggression. I'll leave it up to you in the comments to decide whether you like this or the 2024 front end better. And it still looks fantastic in this supersonic red color, but that is one other thing for 2025 is there is no more of the cool blues like the blue flame you had for the Circuit Edition last year. Now it's just the supersonic red, and then you have black, white, or gray. Those are your choices here. I do wish we'd see more color in the color palette here, but there's always the aftermarket, I suppose, until Toyota offers a new fun color. The interior of the 2025 GR Corolla does actually get a few little tweaks here, in addition to just the automatic shifter, which is so crazy to see in this vehicle, but there are some other meaningful changes also for manual transmission versions. So all across the board here, you're going to have these new finishes for the buttons. They got rid of the chrome plated kind of buttons here in the middle, and so now it's this dark gray. It gives it a sportier vibe. You see that reflected also around the air vents and on the dash there. And also for the manuals now, the IMT button to turn on and off the rev matching used to be over here on the left-hand side of the dash. Now it is thankfully right next to the shifter, which is a really nice switch there. And also the one we're in here is the Premium Plus trim, which basically just gives you the red stitching here on the inside. That's really the only exclusive thing, because otherwise the regular Premium trim is the one that steps you up to these sportier seats with the Bren knob suede. You also get the Qi wireless charging pad, the heated seats, heated steering wheel, all those types of things. Now, Premium Plus does also add on a head-up display. That is one thing you don't get on that regular Premium trim. And then again, going down to the Core will give you the cloth seats that are a little less sporty, but I spent a week with a Core and it was still fantastic. And so no worries if you go for the base one. It is still, it's a Corolla. You're buying it for the performance, and it's still totally fine. But the other big changes here, so of course with the steering wheel you now have paddle shifters on the automatic, and that's an area where I thought they would do a little more, because these are just the same paddle shifters you get in any other Toyota, a Camry, a Highlander, whatever. Like, they all have these same plastic paddle shifters. They're fine, but for the performance aim of this transmission, it would have been nice for them to make it feel different than a regular Toyota automatic with the paddle shifters, something a little sportier to match, the aggression of the GR Corolla here. But a minor nitpick. And the other thing though that has changed is you'll see that the GR4 mode selector down here has changed. So as far as the traction, control modes here. So previously for the torque split, you used to be able to have on this selector, it would say front and then rear. Now it says normal and gravel. And that's because the normal mode is now 60% front, 40 rear. Typical like what you had in the basic front setup you had previously. But the rear setting is gone, and now gravel gives you 50-50 instead of the 30-70 rear bias you used to have. Now if you want to have that 30-70 split, you have to go into track mode, and then they say that it is a variable torque split between the 60 front, 40 rear, and it can still go up to 30 front, 70 rear. So it can still do that rear bias, but only if the system deems that you want that based on your throttle inputs and steering angles. If assuming it's, just if sensing that if you are trying to drift it, then it will give you more of that rear bias, but it kind of avoids that a little bit more. It seems like they want to relieve some of the stress from that rear diff that, has been something that has popped up here on these. So, I'm not sure if that's why, or, if there's some other reason why they changed that. But, I just kind of would like to have still seen, just the dedicated mode to put it into that rear mode. So you're gonna have to go for a 2024 if you want to, you know, retain that ability to force it into a rear biased setup. Otherwise, the most you can force it into there is 50/50 really. Yeah, otherwise, you know, no other changes to the interior here for 2025. Although the last minor little gripe I will say is I was hoping maybe they would have introduced a center armrest here for 25, because that is still something that is absent. It's a fun vehicle, you know, it's not the end of the world, especially here for the automatic where you're not, you know, going to have to worry about bumping into a armrest, you know, with a shifter. This would have been nice to include for the automatics at least, and instead we don't have that. But again, I'm not going to complain. The GR Corolla is still so much fun, so awesome. I'll take it however we can get it. So anyway, those are all the main changes here on the interior, but let's take it for a drive. And we're gonna try out a launch control, hopefully on track tomorrow. But first, let's do an acceleration and see how it goes. Here we go. I'm in sport mode, and okay, it didn't give me a downshift, it just left me in second. And it pulls really nicely though. It's a fairly tall second, and the surprising thing about the gearing here for the DAT automatic from the GR Corolla is that the gearing is almost identical from 1 through 4. It's not until 5th where it starts to differentiate itself a little bit, and then of course once you get to those higher gears beyond 6th, then it's going to, you know, be more of a hypermiler kind of situation. But they've really kept the gearing close to the manual. So, you know, don't expect this to be like other automatics where, you know, oftentimes you have really aggressive gearing for the first few gears to really rip your head off. This, I mean, again, it didn't even want me to go down into first there, and second was pretty tall. So and that's why I believe they're saying that the 0 to 60 time is identical between this and the manual transmission at 4.9 seconds. Now for 2025, we do have more torque across the board for both manual and automatic versions of the GR Corolla. So it's still 300 horsepower, but you now get 295 pound-feet of torque, which is 22 more pound-feet than before. I still love these things. They sound so good. Get a little, even like burble from the exhaust. Man, but yeah, like, you know, it knows that I'm kind of in the mood for sporty driving. It's in sport mode, and I hear a little bit of like a transmission whine, obviously from the automatic, but man. Yeah, it's just content to just sit in second gear here. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the manual mode here. I'm not going to be able to do too much because, again, we are just on some normal residential roads here. But, okay, so first is pretty short. I mean, it went up, I mean, I'm at 20 miles an hour and I'm sitting at like 4,500 RPM. So it's pretty quick. I mean, it's right there and snappy. You know, as soon as I'm hitting the paddle,
Welcome to South Carolina.
Now we're in South Carolina. But let's try some downshifts. Okay. And it's right there. I mean, I would say it's definitely as quick as the F8 speed. I think they actually have matched it, and I don't know. I feel like this might be the first torque converter to actually at least match the shift speeds of the ZF8 speed. According to Toyota's charts, it actually is supposed to be quicker than a comparable 8-speed automatic. They don't specify which 8-speed automatic they are targeting there for that competition, but you know, that is what they're suggesting. This is quicker than some 8-speed automatic, but I think personally, seat of the pants, it feels about as fast as the ZF8 speed, which is, you know, again, best in class, really top notch, and, you know, much quicker than we're used to from other, you know, automatics and Toyotas. And let's try some more manual shifts here from a low speed kind of situation. And here we go. Oh, yeah, it's no complaints, zero complaints. Shift speed is, no one's gonna complain about shift speed. Absolutely. It's perfect. It is actually perfect, and you have the smoothness of a torque converter. They actually pulled it off. I mean, I'll spend more time with this. I'm going to be on track with this. We'll see how it is on track, and I will hopefully spend a week with one of these as well to see what it's like just around town daily driving a little more casually. But yeah, and I love the gearing in GR Corolla. I think it's great. So to retain that same exact feeling, you really, if you felt bad that you were missing out on GR Corolla because you couldn't deal with an automatic or a manual for whatever reason, don't feel like you're getting any kind of a different experience. You really are getting basically the same experience here with the gearing, and that's really uncommon in the car world. Usually manual and automatics vary, you know, pretty wildly, and so this is and I love the blow-off valve sounds, and the extra grunt is certainly nice. I'm not sure how much you'll really appreciate 22 more pound-feet of torque, but I'm certainly not going to say no to more power. It's great that we have that too. But man, this thing is I'm just overjoyed to be behind the wheel of a GR Corolla again. Easily one of my favorite new cars on the market right now. It reminds me of the old Subaru WRXs that we loved with their very boosty kind of nature. And yeah, I still am fully infatuated with this vehicle, and the automatic honestly does nothing to hinder that. Every single car I've bought has been a manual transmission, but you know, if you sit in a lot of traffic, you know, you live in LA or something, or some of these places where it's really tough to have a manual, absolutely go for the automatic. Yes, it's $2,000 more, and if I were buying a GR Corolla, I'd still go for the manual. I think it's important to support the manuals, save the manuals. If everyone goes for an automatic, then we lose the manual, you know, so definitely, you know, don't everyone go and buy the automatic, but you know, I think that it's awesome that we have this option for those who want it and need it, and opens up so many more people to the fun of GR Corolla. The other little changes here for 2025 I'll mention briefly are that they did retune the suspension to have more stability, less rear squat, and just more composure overall. So they did that with a few different little tweaks. They're all pretty small tweaks, but basically up front there we have some rebound springs that have been added to the dampers there. We also now have the trailing arm mount is moved up. We have a slightly thinner rear stabilizer bar, and also some retuned rear springs. So especially the rear end is going to feel different, and that's what I'm excited to try out on track. Does this still want to oversteer as much as it did previously, now that we've lost the ability to force it into 70% in the rear, and now that, you know, things have been retuned? I'm curious if that's going to make it just more sure-footed and less tail happy or not, because that could change the character of this car. I'm, you know, driving around rush hour kind of times here, you know, just on suburban back roads, not really able to, you know, exploit the limits of grip out here, but the great thing is we will be on track, and I will weigh in on all that. The one other handling thing to mention that's important is that now the front and rear limited slip dips are standard. That used to be an option on the Core. That is no longer an option, so as a result the base price does climb, but it's basically because, again, you're getting more of that equipment than you had in the past. Anyway, I'm going to sign off for now, and let's hit the track. Alright, so we're at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Here we're going to be doing an infield course today in the GR Corolla, but first we're going to start off with a launch control, so let's try that out. Here we go. Alright, it's pretty smooth. It's really smooth. I mean, I'm impressed at just how impressive it is, and now we're on track, so I'm not going to be very good at talking while driving aggressively on track here, but yeah, very impressive for the launch control. But let's see how this thing handles out here. We're on the oval of Charlotte Motor Speedway. Never been on the oval before here, or any oval for that matter. It's really fun. Doing a little slalom here. Love slaloms. Since it's so close to the manual tuning for the gearing, it's very, very familiar. Ah, nice rotation there. All right, so that is the first lap. I like the rotation. I remember these rotating before. I was worried that, you know, now they got rid of the dedicated 30-70 mode in the rear, that it would be less tail happy, but it seems like it still is really lively and tail happy and a ton of fun. But I'm going to do some more driving just to make sure I do a proper assessment of how this thing is on track here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Subsequent laps confirmed that the car still has its slightly tail-happy nature, and it will still send significant amounts of power rearward, so this doesn't feel any more front-biased in track mode than before to me. It still feels very neutral most of the time and just as much fun as prior model years. Also, for anyone curious about the weight penalty of going for the automatic, it adds just 45 pounds to the car, so no noticeable difference there either, with a curb weight now of 3,274 pounds for the base car. Speaking of tiny changes, the last thing to mention is that they made tiny tweaks to improve rigidity slightly thanks to new bolts in key places. Honestly, I don't think I've ever talked about bolt changes in a car review before, and they didn't quantify exactly how much rigidity has been increased, but they say it improves your feeling of connectedness to the car, and I couldn't notice a change myself, and there weren't any 24s on site to compare, but I'll take their word for it, since I'm sure they wouldn't have bothered to make these changes if they didn't think it was worthwhile. Overall though, the bottom line is that the GR Corolla is still just as much fun on track, but only the most experienced and skilled GR Corolla drivers will likely appreciate the suspension and rigidity tweaks. The last thing to really mention is pricing, and for 2025 here, pricing starts at exactly $40,000, $39,995 for a manual transmission GR Corolla. And again, that means you get those front and rear diffs as standard now, and otherwise the core is pretty much the same as it was in the past. Still at 40 grand, 300 horsepower. That is something that can't be matched, and it's just a fantastic little car. And having the all-wheel drive too, whenever all the other hot hatch competitors are just front-wheel drive, it's just so great. I mean, we do have Golf R as well, but to have the option with the manual, which you can't get in the Golf R anymore, and also this fantastic automatic, which, by the way, speaking of Golf R, one final thing to mention, this is absolutely better transmission tuning than the Golf R. I had an automatic dual clutch Golf R for a week a little while back, and it just was geared and programmed for hypermiling, and it was so annoying to try and get a downshift, and you had to drive around in sport mode or paddle shift all the time if you ever wanted any kind of sporty feel out of it. This, I've been driving in normal mode here a little bit, and it's responsive, it's quick to react, and it never feels bogged down or like it's trying to hypermile. Golf R now always feels like it wants a hypermile, and it's kind of unfortunate. So this is absolutely the better automatic tuning if you are cross-shopping between the two of these. But anyway, so, and then automatic for these is $2,000 extra. So those start, because you can get it in the core, which is great, at $41,995. 42 grand for all this performance, the all-wheel drive, and have it here with the automatic is really great. And so, yeah, I just absolutely adore this thing, and again, it just makes it more fun for everybody here. So I'll go ahead and put it back up into the sport mode and leave you with one final acceleration here. And here we go. I still adore this thing. It's fantastic. Yeah. Oh man, I'm so glad that they've now opened it up to more people here with the automatic for 2025, and that they just keep on making these things. Hope they continue to build these as long as they possibly can and churn out as many as they can. I know they don't build a ton of these, but man, I'm just grateful we get the ones we do, because it is just such a special car. So anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the 2025 GR Corolla with the automatic. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Toyota for providing me here with this opportunity and the lodging in order to review this GR Corolla for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.